Welcome to the first Grammys on the Hill Future Forum. Thank you for being here. This is the capstone to what has been an impactful week for Grammys on the Hill, music's biggest week in Washington, D.C. As I mentioned, this is our first Future Forum. The Future Forum is intended to be a space where we can dive in and explore some of the biggest issues facing the music community today. And certainly right now, there is no issue dominating the conversation like artificial intelligence, AI. So to help us put on this event today, we are thrilled to be partnering with the Human Artistry Campaign. Yes, round of applause. Last year, the Recording Academy, along with many of our friends in the music community, helped launch the Human Artistry Campaign. It has grown exponentially since then. It now encompasses 185 organizations in 40 countries around the world, committed to the idea of protecting human creativity and supporting ethical and responsible AI. And so today we're going to dig into both of those issues. We really want to unpack both the promise and the peril of artificial intelligence. We know that AI has great promise to open up opportunities and provide new pathways for people to create and do innovative things with music. And then we also know that there's real peril involved, that there are threats and risks to the creative community. And so we're going to talk about that and talk about what policymakers and lawmakers should be doing to address it. So let's start with the positive. Let's take a look and dig into what artists are doing with AI in a positive way, things that they haven't been able to do before. I'm excited to welcome two panelists that have such a wide, diverse range of experience from so many different directions that will really be able to talk about this issue and help inform how we think about it. I'm first excited to welcome Danny Deal. Danny is a DJ and producer. She's also a former journalist and editor. She's a member of our Chicago Board of Governors for the Recording Academy and also the head of communication and creator insights at BandLab. So, and then second, we have Kokai. Kokai is a Grammy-nominated musician, an MC, an artist, a producer, an educator, a thought leader. My favorite thing about Kokai is on his website, he calls himself a connector of dots. And I love that because that's actually what we're really trying to do here at the Future Forum is connect some of these dots and help us make sense of big issues. He's also been a mainstay of our Washington, D.C. chapter of the Recording Academy, having been president of the chapter, a national trustee, and I think basically every elected position you can hold. So we have to think of a new one. So with that, thank you, Danny and Kokai. Please join me on stage.
Thank you for having us.
So one thing to start, the Human Artistry Campaign has a number of principles that they put forth to guide how we think about AI. And the first of those is that technology has long empowered human experience, and AI will be no different. And I'm kind of curious, just to kind of help set the table, how have you embraced technology even before AI? What's been your approach to using new technology, and how have you seen that marriage between music and tech?
The marriage of music and tech has always existed. I think instead of us looking at it as a Venn diagram, we should just look at it as two overlapping circles. This has always been the case. But for me, particularly in dance music, we're always early adopters. We love experimenting with new tech. And I've used tech in every portion of my music making abilities. I started to learn how to make music in Logic and moved to Ableton. As a DJ, I'm working on CDJs and I work with Moog synths and all sorts of fun modular hardware. So it's a part of my cultural and musical fabric, and it's a part of my artistic identity.
Yeah, similar. As a hip hop artist, actually technology was the thing that helped birth hip hop. When music programs were taken out of school, it was the two turntables and a microphone and the ingenuity to be able to plug into a street lamp, to be able to have park jams, you know what I mean? It was all of those things, the creation of something out of nothing. And then utilizing that technology to tell a story. So drum machines were adopted by us when drummers, real drummers in the 70s didn't like drum machines, right? They felt that their jobs would be taken, but the 808 and the 909 are staples now in dance music, in country music, everywhere.
Yeah. The 909 was instrumental in creating house music.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and techno, which all of these things, and we also adopt technology outside of the creative space, outside of making anything. Before the pandemic, I was using Zooms or listen to and connecting with folks over email. There was no problem to send a file. There was no problem to meet with people across countries, across, continents, because we were already adopting this technology. I mean, you can go back and listen to Tribe Called Quest Sky Pager, right? Have you ever heard of the Sky Pager? You wanted to be connected to people before people were thinking about phones. I'm also from the generation of quarters in the phone, right? But of beepers, of having a way to be in contact with folks, and that evolution in communications from beepers to cell phones and everything else.
How have you seen, just in the time that you've been creating music, how have you adapted to new technologies from where you started to where you are now, where you've changed, like you've changed in real time, your workflow, your process of how you create music?
For me, the technology is inspiration and efficiency, right? So some things I just want to be efficient and be able to move and be able to, do things quickly. And so you adopt these things to be able to cut down on wasting time. You want to not waste time at all. We moved from large studios where you had to spend thousands of dollars to you can record in your house. And that cut down on budgets, that cut down on time, that cut down on other things that you could be, using to create, time that you could use to create.
No, I agree. The two words that he used were perfect: inspiration and effectiveness. That's how I always look at incorporating new tools. When I started making dance music, I had to comb for samples and make sure they were very expensive and make sure that they were okay to use. And then things like Splice came along, which is a really wonderful platform where you can cash in credits and get royalty-free samples, and you can be assured that the use of that in your work is cleared and free to use. And so I've always looked for ways to incorporate new technology to make sure that I have more creative time. I think that's really, at the end of the day, what we're both searching for.
I think that's really important, knowing that concept of looking for efficiencies, ways that you can really free yourself up to do more creative work and not do the things that take you away from the real creativity. How do you see artificial intelligence then being similar or different than any of these other technologies, especially in the software space, new platforms, new tech? What seems the same to you as you look at AI, and what feels different?
It's the same in that it is another piece of new technology that we have the ability to harness in a responsible way in order to create additional efficiencies for us or to create additional points of inspiration. Where it is different, it doesn't need to sleep. It doesn't need to take a break. It doesn't need to eat. It can create endlessly, and it can create at the push of a button. And that is, I think, something that we really need to be cognizant of, is no matter how much music you've listened to, Kokai, I know that you have a wealth of information, but an AI can have all the information that you have in your brain, plus tens of millions of songs more, and it can create ad infinitum an amount of material in seconds.
Yeah. I mean, I feel the same. It's with any new technology, right? Some people are gonna use it as a full crutch. It's gonna be the whole thing. Like, I remember when sample time was 22 seconds, and you had to search and dig and try to find a little piece of the record. And then when it became 4 minutes, people just were like, I'll take the whole thing. Like, I'm just gonna do it. I'm not gonna change anything. I put a kick and a snare and we out. Like, the ingenuity, the wanting to make something new or make something weird was gone. And I think some people just do that with technology, period. So some folks with AI are like, oh, wow, how can this be an assistant? How can I do something interesting? How can I do something that doesn't harm or hurt anybody? How can I do something with the technology to help me and add it to my creative process? And then there's some people that are gonna be like, I'll just rely on that, period, right? And so I think it also falls on the individual, what type of choices that you wanna make when you get to using technology, period. And that's any technology.
So that's a great transition. So for each of you as individuals, what are you looking for in AI? What are the aspects of the technology that interest you, that make kind of draw you in to think, I want to see what that can do. I want to try that. Versus, and I love the way you separated between things that help you versus things that where you just don't want to do it. You just want it to do everything for you. So I'm curious, what is it that appeals to you when you look at some of this technology?
I'm weird, and I like space, and I like weird stuff, and I like to experiment, and I'm like, how crazy can it get? How weird can it be? And can I imagine it this way? What if it was walking on the moon? What does swimming under the water with, Tic Tacs in your pocket sound like? Go, right? What does that sound like? And having AI dig into that part and seeing what that sounds like, because I can put in a prompt exactly what I might feel, right? What does blue sound like on a different, synesthesia? You can do it with melisma. You can do it with all sorts of things. You can be like, okay, what does red sound like if it was, with a box of nerds in the pocket? If it was, what does crispy sweet sound like? As a prompt, and that might give me an idea. Now, I'm not going to take the whole thing and be like, all right, this is this. I want to chop that up. I want to rearrange it, but I might need the idea. And I think that every creative, sometimes we get to a place where we can't, real life happens and you get a block. And in that block, you should keep creating, but sometimes you don't have it. So maybe you feed that to the AI and be like, look, I'm blocked right now. What do you have? And then that can help, spark any other idea of creativity.
I think real ones know that a box of nerds in your pocket would sound very different than a box of Tic Tacs in your pocket. Yeah.
Mo definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, he said it perfectly. The things that I'm looking for are, you put it so eloquently, but it's inspiration, and it's also maybe a tool can get me to think in a way that is different from how I would normally approach making music. I think sometimes I can get into a lot of patterns, and I get comfortable with repetition and making the same sound over and over again. And so I like using tools that can surprise me, that can get me into a mental space that I would not have normally arrived to otherwise.
So I know a lot of conversations about AI and music seem very abstract, of people talking about how they're using it. I would love for us to try to drill down and make it feel a little more concrete and specific. Maybe we can look at some of these tools and try them out here in the room and help people really kind of understand what it is that we're talking about.
Oh, funny you should bring that up.
Yeah, amazing. But I think it's important for people to really be able to put their hands around what that really means when people are using AI. And I know a lot of terms get bandied about that maybe people don't understand. So knowing we have a wide breadth of audience here, one thing that gets talked about a lot is stem separation. Mm-hmm. So for people that maybe don't know, what's a stem? Let's just start there. Let's explain what a stem is.
How many people do we have in the audience that actually make music? Okay, a fair
That's
amount.
great.
So I will be saying things that the majority of you possibly know. So stem separation, this is maybe not the perfect analogy, but imagine you have a smoothie and you've put in your bananas and strawberries and peanut butter and whatever else, and then AI can take that smoothie and separate the parts out. So you can take one recording and feed it through an algorithm, and then it can separate out the vocals, the guitar, the bass, the percussion for you. And that's really useful for a variety of reasons. There are some AI companies that deal in stem separation that work with historical recordings, where they've been, the stems were either never recorded, they only have the master recording, they could have been lost in fires. There's a variety of reasons why you might need to use this, and I just used it the other day because I'm working on a collaboration with two other artists, and the vocalist sent me a scratch track of her vocals. The scratch track she sent me had a bed already underneath it of a sample vibe that she wanted me to replicate. So I used an AI to separate her vocals, to extract her vocals from the recordings, that I could then produce a sample beat underneath and see if she would like it, which is really useful because otherwise I would have had to create something separately send it to her. Hopefully she would like it. Maybe it would match her vocals, maybe it wouldn't. There'd be a lot of back and forth, and this way I'm able to cut the amount of time and the work down by half or 75%.
What I love about that is so much of music is about collaboration and how people come together to make music. And I know one of the concerns about AI is that it allows people to do more isolated and more individually without other people. But this is a great example of AI actually fostering collaboration and making it easier to work with people. So could you by chance share a little bit of what that might sound like?
I absolutely could.
Actually.
So this first recording is the scratch track that the vocalist sent me the other day. And you'll hear at points that maybe her singing is a little bit out of key because she didn't know exactly what to pick for the track underneath. She just wants something that was similar in vibe. There we go. So you get the idea. I got the idea of what I thought she was going for. So instead of me going back to her with a separate beat and having her re-record and yada yada, everything I explained before, I fed it instead into a tool that allows me to completely isolate her vocals. This is the very same recording, and all I received was that master recording. I could also, not like I needed this, but I could isolate the drums if I wanted to. I could isolate the bass. I could isolate the percussion. Now for this, I only needed the vocals. So the result of that is I was able to, yesterday, take those vocals and make a scratch track, an actual scratch track, with the sound that I thought that she was going for. For the musicians in the room, this is a whip, please. This is not final, it's a work in progress. But this is a track that I'm actively working on. And I was able to send this recording to the vocalist and very immediately get a response from her to say, yes, this is exactly what I had in my mind, and then we can progress from there.
Amazing, I love it. So another term I've heard talked about is either vocal replacement, voice swapping. Let's explain kind of what that realm is.
Tone transfer is fake Drake, right? We've all heard that. It is a generative model that is trained to replicate another person's voice. I know that this feels the scariest to a lot of the folks in this room. It sits in that uncanny valley. It's one of those kinds of AI where you encounter it and you think immediately this is very human, but it's not exactly human. But there are positive use cases for this, and it can be done in a responsible way. There are a couple of companies that do tone transfer in a way that I think is actually quite ethical. But that essentially that's what it is. It's transferring the tone of somebody's voice. I'll just say as an interesting aside, because it is tone transfer and it's not, it doesn't take all of the qualities of somebody's voice, you'll find that with a lot of tone transfer models, if, for example, you give it, you're singing in English, but you want to tone transfer to French, the resulting French will actually have an American accent. We've been playing around with some tone transfer stuff, and if I feed my voice into a tone transfer model for a male who has a gravelly voice, he might sound like he has a little bit of a valley accent because it still has my inferences, and there's little things about the way I talk that I carry with me.
And what would be an example of how this would be helpful in the creative process when you're creating new music?
So when I'm making music in dance, a lot of the time, the work that I do is mostly instrumental, and I use vocals in fills or before drops. So everybody in here probably knows that, everybody up and jump, right? Or like 1, 2, 3, drop comes. So I could doom scroll on Splice for a couple of hours trying to find the right sample. That's not really an effective use of my time. I also, if I pick a royalty-free sample, there is the risk that other people have also used that sample, and I don't know how many other people have purchased that sample. So if I have a clear idea in my head of what I want, I could instead go to a tone transfer service and talk or sing that fill into the service and completely change the tonality of my voice into the thing that I already have in my head. And be able to use it that way.
And it also works well if you're a music producer and let's say you want to write a song for Rihanna, right? You can sing the scratch track, the scratch vocal track, and it'll sound a certain way. But what if I slapped your voice on it and you could actually hear yourself singing it? I might be able to sell that song a little faster to whatever artist I'm working with. Or if I'm singing it, of course my register, my range is going to be much lower, but then I can pitch it up without using auto-tune. I can actually have a female voice on the track that I wrote that I wanted for a female singer to do. And then now I don't have to go through or jump through a number of hoops that I would have to do. And especially with Splice, if you're just using that Splice sample, just be ready for 15 people. And for me, Splice is cool, but the person got paid. Am I going to go back and pay them again, right? And so the company that you're speaking about, they pay the artists whose voices they use. And every time that service is used with their voice on it, they get paid again.
Yeah, I think that's a fascinating model that, again, they're working with artists that want to lend their voices for this. They come in and record their own vocals that the company can use, and then that's what gets fed into the AI generator. So again, it's artists lending their voice with their consent, being licensed and getting compensated for it.
Yeah, so to be clear, I don't think we've mentioned the name of the company, but the name of the company that I like to use is called Voice Swap. It is a newer company. They've licensed about 12 to 15 different voices from folks. They spend about 30 to 40 minutes recording that individual, expressing in a variety of different ways, singing, talking, all the different ways that you can use your voice. And that becomes the model. So they have a lot of rules that I like. One of those rules is they do not use existing copyrighted released material from that artist in order to train. They also do a 50-50 split with the artist on all of the output. So when we do this demonstration, after the demonstration, I will know that because I used a credit for this demonstration on stage, that the artist on the other end will have gotten paid. And that's also really interesting because this is a new revenue stream, potentially for artists, a passive revenue stream, which is even more attractive. So there are ways to do this responsibly. And the reason why I chose this company to demonstrate it is because they believe in consent, copyright, control, compensation. And those are the 4 C's that I like to live by.
We're always talking about consent, credit, and compensation, and this really embodies all of those. So you mentioned a demonstration. Could we try it? Let's see what it looks like.
So we're going to turn Kokai into a female pop singer. So I'm going to play you a demo of this model first so you can hear what the original singer sounds like.
Why did you make a decision? Do you want to be with me?
So this is Rose. Rose is an actual human being. She is a session artist that works mainly in the dance realm. So what we're going to do is record Kokai, and we're going to make him sound like Rose.
Let me love you right now. Let me love you right now. I was trying to get up there somewhere to see something.
We are voice swapping.
Let me love you right now. Let me love you right now.
Somebody needs some Melodyne on that, John.
We can fix that.
We can fix that. We can fix that in the mix. We're going to fix that in the mix, dog.
Yeah, but I think the output is so interesting to me because you can still hear that it's Kokai because of the way that he sung, but the tone is different. So, and Rose just got paid, by the way, for that demo, so that's really wonderful.
That's fantastic. So one last piece of application here. I know song generation, which again can be controversial. It gets to that question of, are you using it to help you, or are you using it just so you don't have to do it? But what are some ways that using a song generator can actually aid in the creative process?
Well, he talked about a really crucial pain point earlier, which is blank canvas syndrome. Yeah. So many of us have the intent to create, the desire to, but sometimes it just does not come, and you need a little jump start in order to get in the flow. So I find that certain AI tools can be really helpful for providing that seed of creativity that allow me to get into flow state.
Yeah. Similar. And when you do generate, what I try to stay away from is using specific bands or specific groups or specific terms in terms of, I like floaty ideas. So let me figure out an idea or a concept that isn't like, let me get the horns from Kool and the Gang. I'm not going to do that. Right? I would say I want to hear a trumpet that sounds kind of like birds, but it's a tuba. You know what I mean? So you get some sort of idea. And again, just like we all have our lexicon of language, one piece of a conversation sparks you and pushes you into a whole different direction. And so that idea that's generated may be something I'm like, oh, well, this is amazing, but I think I can scrap that whole thing and just go in this direction. But I need a kickstart. I need something that's going to jumpstart what I'm working on or where I'm trying to go. And I feel like that's very helpful when you want to do that.
So what's an example of that, Danny? What can we do?
Great. Well, at BandLab, we have a tool called Song Starter, which is specifically for the generation of the seed of a musical idea. And I like to joke that we call it Song Starter, not Song Finisher, for a reason. It is really built with a lot of guidelines and parameters in place. For example, all of the data that is used to train our AI is done in-house. So it's all based upon music theory and commissioned material. It also, the output is really meant to, I'm really setting the bar here so that you're not expecting a Taylor Swift chart-topping hit on the other end of this. The output is really meant to be fine. Do you know what I mean? Like fine. It is not meant to be something that you immediately go, oh my God, wow, this is amazing, press publish, go put it out on the DSPs. It is really meant to be, here is something that I can work with. It takes you from nothing, if you're in pottery, it takes you from nothing to at least having a lump of clay in front of you that you can work with. So that's the idea. So I could demo this. I really feel like I'm about to do an improv set because I'm going to be like, name a genre, now give me some words. Okay, does anyone have
One
any,
night only.
Huh? One night only.
Yeah.
Anyone have any feelings about a genre? Acoustic pop, hip hop, house? Afrobeats?
Afrobeats.
Unfortunately, I do not have a button here that says Afrobeats.
Oh.
Oh, we got to change that.
Got to work on that.
We got to work on that. I will take that feedback to the team. I heard house over there. And can someone give me some descriptive words? Like tic-tacs underwater.
Yes.
Yeah, this is like Mad Libs. So it will give me 3 ideas. Is this what you thought when you were thinking about tic-tacs underwater? No.
Not at all. That's a.
This is number 2. Oh, I could work with that one. I like that one.
I like that one better. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one. Except for that little.
So when you
Yeah,
take,
but we can take that out. It's all MIDI. Yeah.
well, when you start with that as the starting track, what are the ways that you can customize that and play with that to make it more your own?
Oh, any number of things. Because it's MIDI, all of the instruments are assignable, so we can get rid of that little synth that you didn't like at the end, and we can make it any instrument under the sun that you want. You could change the BPM, add vocals, any sort of processing signal chain on top of it. The sky's the limit, really. This is just the starting idea. And then also, if I choose this, if I like this, and I decide to open it in Studio, which is our version of a DAW, light DAW, then it will take this combination out of existence, and no one else will ever be served this combination of stems ever again. So you can be sure that what you receive is not going to be replicated by the AI ever. And we do find that it is incredibly useful for people, and the reason we're able to say that it's useful is that people who create songs in BandLab using SongStarter as their entry point versus any other entry point that we offer within the BandLab ecosystem are actually 80% more likely to publish that finished track and share it with other people. So that's pretty powerful. Yeah.
So we've talked about all these tools. When you look at them together, we're talking about lowering the bar to entry in terms of time and the time it takes to create music, lowering the bar to entry in terms of resources for people that don't have necessarily the resources to hire people to come into the studio to replicate work over and over again. Real quickly, I would love to just touch on also the idea of lowering the barrier to entry in terms of education, because I know there's a lot that in terms of music theory, in terms of really high-level music education, that not everyone is able to achieve. But AI in some ways can lower those barriers too by allowing you to do things that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. Can either of you speak to that?
I mean, I think when we think about technology, a lot of times we miss the first part. Can you have an affordable machine? Can you actually afford the program? We could talk about, oh yeah, music producing. What can you work this on? So if it takes up too much space, do you need a $1,600 Mac, right? Do you need a $2,000 whatever? Or is this licensed? Can I use this AI program to start off my process for $9 a month, or is it $600 a month, right? So you start talking about financially, accessibility in those spaces, good machines, decent internet, like all of those things start to play, into being able to create. It's not school. Like school, there's access and there's things of that nature, and people can get in and out of school, whatever, right? But for the average person who is trying to create in their house, if they have the right machine, if they have access to internet, if they can afford to do it on whatever job that they have, does this help them at this place? And I feel that it absolutely does, because depending on the cost, some of these things are absolutely, they're free. I mean, free, how we gonna call it free, but you're still spending something. But they're less expensive than what it would cost you to go do something else. However, I do find with people who have started out, in most cases, using things that are inexpensive, what they wind up doing is paying people to do the things that are more expensive when they're able to place tracks, when they're able to sell songs, when they're able to do whatever. And we talked about this yesterday. I was like, what happened to the person who made the Apple loop that sparked Cucurell and The Dream to do Umbrella? That's an Apple loop. One drum beat that loops. And are you paid ever again from that? What about the person who did, what was the Gorilla song?
Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, Clint Eastwood. That's a demo track on a piece of equipment. The Carnival, Emu Carnival, is Eve's biggest hit. One of those things. And that was the sample song that came on a piece of equipment. Swizz hit the button. I like that part of it. I'm gonna go ahead, chop that up, and put a beat on it. Is that person who did that ever gonna get paid again? And I feel like artists sometimes go back and pay those folks. And I feel like, this is a great starting point and lowers those barriers to entry for creativity in the beginning. And it's on the individual to go back and make sure that they make things right.
I think we also have to be really cognizant about the way that we use the word accessibility. We're really lucky to be the people that we are in this room right now. And the fact of the matter is there are billions of people around the world that don't have access to stable internet, to to be able to pay the $9 a month for a subscription. $9 is very expensive in parts of the world, in the Philippines, for example. So free tools that are providing access to folks on phones is really the truest point of actual accessibility that we have seen in music in a very long time. And these AI tools are going to be able to empower people that never had a hope or wish or a dream that they could embrace music, be a part of it. They now can be a part of that fabric. And that is really exciting to me. I think we're finally at a place where our idea of the democratization of making music is actually becoming a reality. And that's in no small part thanks to tools like AI that can actually take people that have no access to music theory, no access to general music education, no access to that MacBook, but let them create and be a part of the process.
It's amazing. I think that's a perfect note to close the conversation on. Thank you both so much for sharing and illuminating and pulling back the curtain on what AI really means for creativity. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.